Hi there and welcome everyone. I'm just waiting for different attendees to join in. And Lena, if you can hear me, can you see my screen? Because I'm still just learning what I can see and what I can't see. So if you could just confirm you could see my screen, that would be great.
Yes, Kate, your screen is visible.
Okay, that's great. That's good. Right, I'll leave that up then. I know it's a bit of an early morning, so we'll let people have some time to call in. And as I see people joining in now, can I invite everyone to introduce yourselves in the chat box? Would you give us your name and your role in the city you're calling in from or the organization you're representing? So I'll type an example, and it's just really helpful for everyone to know each other and see who else is in the room. And I know the virtual conference style can sometimes be a little bit transmit only, so it'd just be great to have a shout out from where you are and the city you're representing and the role that you play. Thanks, Hilde. So I'm going to give it one more minute, just so different people can join, and then I'm going to kick off. Okay, welcome everyone, and thanks very much for calling in on an early morning. I'm very pleased to be here to launch a report that the team at C40 Cities have pulled together with the help and input of several different C40 cities, and I think it's really fantastic to be able to in public thank Daniel Moser, who's my co-host today, who's here representing the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, whose support has made it possible for us to pull together this report and create this knowledge document for C40 Cities. And you'll forgive me, I hope I'm a little bit unfamiliar with this webinar system. So I think it'll go smoothly, but if there are any hiccups, please feel free to unmute yourself or mention it in the chat box. And if you have some serious problems, please email Lena Fisher, who will have sent your follow-ups to your email, and she'll try and help you in the background. So kicking off, this is the launch of a document, a knowledge document about how C40 cities are implementing zero emission areas, which is one of the commitments of the C40 Green and Healthy Streets Declaration. And for those callers who are a little bit unfamiliar with C40 cities, I'm going to start with a quick introduction to C40 as an organization. And forgive me for those who are old friends and know this quite well. So C40 is essentially a collaborative organization of the world's mayors of the mega cities around the world. So we have 97 members, and we're focused on the toughest climate targets in the world. We represent, as a collective, 700 million citizens and a quarter of the global economy. And the intention is to rally and create an organizing function so that leaders who are concerned about climate change can share ideas with each other and take ambitious action. And I think really importantly is that nobody is doing enough on climate change, but cities are doing the most. And our chair, which is Eric Garcetti, likes to joke that a good mayors borrow, great mayors steal. And the document that we're launching today is a really great example of a knowledge document that allows mayors and people who support mayors like yourselves to steal good ideas from each other and accelerate climate action. And so this is the intention, is to show you what other people are thinking and give you inspiration and showcase really, really excellent thinking in this field already. And one of the things that C40 mayors do in order to take ambitious action is sign up to ambitious declarations. And the declaration that is the subject of today's discussion is the Green and Healthy Streets Declaration. I'm happy to say that there are now 36 signatories to date. This year, the mayor of Bogota announced that she was signing up to this declaration. And you can see the list of all the signatories on the left-hand side here. We're hoping to add 3 more before the first quarter of 2021. So we regard 2020 as having been a bit of a slow year for obvious reasons. But this has proved to be a very popular and important declaration. And we had an overwhelming response from mayors saying, yes, this is the kind of ambition we would like to sign up to. And digging down into what are the commitments of the Green and Healthy Streets Declaration, the first is to procure with our partners only zero emission buses from 2025. So from 2025, every new bus added in a signatory city, every new bus purchased will be zero emission. And the second is to ensure a major area of the city is zero emission by 2030. And this second commitment is the focus of this discussion. So I'm not going to talk very much about buses, I'm afraid, although we do have a lot of really great material on that, and I'm happy to point you towards that if you would like me to in the future. This is talking about trying to achieve a major area of the city as zero emission mobility by 2030, so 10 years from now. And just a quick check-in on announcements and intentions by C40 mayors around zero emission areas and their ambitions in 2020. I realize it's been a very rough year, but in May 2018, Mayor Sadiq Khan announced his intention to bring forward the introduction of zero emission zones to some town centres from 2025, which was his original ambition, to 2020. I believe these plans have been a little bit stalled, but there have been some other significant gains on walking and cycling. Mayor Eric Garcetti announced that he intended to develop a roadmap for fossil fuel-free zone, which is the other way we refer to zero emission areas, and that will be launched in 2021. And that work is still underway. So I'm just gonna have a sip of water. The mayor of Madrid announced he will have implemented a zero emission zone in 2020 in Madrid, and that in fact was launched this year. And the former mayor of Rio de Janeiro has announced a zero emission area pilot street in 2020, and that was also launched this year. And so you're probably very curious to know what exactly defines a zero emission area. And in part, this is the purpose of the document that we put out, to help people to sort of see what we're aiming for, what cities think is a zero emission area. And obviously cities are different. You're going to hear me say this several times in this presentation. So the purpose is to help to give some guidance, but also create some flexibility so that things can be adapted to specific circumstances. But effectively, it's a package of mobility measures that are delivered in a coordinated and an ambitious way within a deadline of 2030. So we are aiming to achieve a significant area that is zero emission by 2030 in the next 10 years. And the policies and incentives which we brought to bear in the area will promote the following outcomes. We will aim to see significantly more trips by walking and cycling. We want to see public transport priority and connectivity. We want to see less vehicles overall in the area, although we don't necessarily want to see a reduction in trips, we just want to see less vehicles. And we want to increase the take-up of zero emission vehicles and phase out fossil fuel vehicles. And because this is a process and we're building towards 2030, the idea is that by 2030, as a result of this coordinated and ambitious effort, there will be fewer vehicles overall in the area, and all trips in the area will be zero emission at the tailpipe. And you're probably going to ask, why does C40 Cities campaign for things like zero emission areas? And while it's certainly true that C40 mayors do care quite a lot about the climate, they don't do this sort of thing in isolation. It's because zero emission areas bring health and equity and economy and safety and security benefits in addition to environmental gains. So one of the things we tried to do was to map out the reasoning and the co-benefits we usually call the benefits in addition to environmental gains that can be made when you make these kinds of interventions in an area. And here is a nice pathways analysis. So it's a really good example for anyone thinking about justifying or putting forward an argument for a zero emission area or these kinds of interventions, and some references to existing analyses by cities that demonstrate the benefits of taking these kinds of actions. So the green examples are environmental benefits, so that's either air quality or GHG emissions reduction. The blue refer to health benefits, so this is avoiding premature deaths and reducing diseases associated with negative outcomes from mobility. And the yellow is positive economic benefits, so we're going to see more jobs as a result, more green jobs as a result of a lot of different interventions. So if you, in the document, you can use these as a starting point, and if you want to dig down more and see these analyses, there's a link to the C40 benefits page where you can really dig around and see lots of other examples from different cities. We've also heard from cities, and it was important to put this across in the document, is that there are a lot of different opportunities created by choosing a single area and coordinating these different interventions. And different cities use these for different reasons. So I haven't yet seen a city that uses all of these different reasons, but certainly 4 or 5 are brought to bear in one area. So a zero emission area is a demonstration pilot for a climate safe mobility system. It's put in place because they expect the area to have a network effect on the wider city. It's an opportunity to prioritize increase walking and cycling, and that might be one reason why the area was prioritized in the first place. It's also an opportunity to prioritize public transport and transit-oriented development. In many cases, it's an area where you can bring together stakeholders and increase the use of zero-emission vehicles. So just having a discussion point means that you can talk more to the private sector and understand what the barriers are to increasing the take-up of those vehicles. It's an excellent community engagement tool, and a lot of cities are using the benefits analyses I referred to in the slide previous to talk more to the community about the kind of future that we want. And there are opportunities to advance zero-emission freight as well. And I'm sure that you're feeling, if you're sitting in a city that's maybe not featured in this guide yet, that your mayor might not have the same kind of power as the cities that are featured in here. And it is true to say that in 2020, the front runners are the ones where the mayors have quite significant power in the transport area, but I think they're really useful examples to draw from. But I think it's also important to say that C40 mayoral powers are versatile if they're not identical. And we often see mayors who have significantly different powers available to them and influence available to them take similar action. And one of the things we tried to do was unpack the different types of power that a mayor can bring in order to influence an outcome that is positive for the environment. So there's examples include commanding power, where a mayor may use regulation and enforcement to create change and enact policy. There might be implementing power, where a mayor has a delivery of a project or a program and takes the lead in that way. The mayor may have a lot of power over service delivery, so a lot of providing power. It's a very nice example of usually where a mayor decides what fleet to purchase. They may have legislating power, and then there's sort of slightly softer power that's still very, very powerful, which is collaborating power, so working in partnership with other actors, or vision setting power, which is explaining why going in this way is important, and then making the political case for change so that other actors can act in that way. And I'm sure at this point you're sort of feeling as if I could really get into the details here of how exactly zero emission areas are being delivered. So I shall move straight into that right now, because I think that's the meat of this one. So what we see, and what you'll see in the document, is there are essentially 4 implementation pathways that are emerging amongst different C40 cities. And some cities combine all of these approaches into one strategy, usually because they have the ability to do all 4. And others, because they're still finding the ability to do them or feeling out and moving forward, use these approaches as a pathway in itself, and they progress from one stage to another as the zero emission area matures. There is no right way, there's no moving to A to B we've seen. Mainly, it's just that if you use all 4 of these different interventions, you have quite a complete picture. But in 2020, we're seeing these themes, and I really want to just point you to the different ideas and different approaches. And I should also say the guide uses these icons to highlight when one or a number of approaches are featured in a city case study. So look out for them next to the name of the city itself. And so deep diving down, a lot of cities use street-based pilots. They improve walking and cycling infrastructure at the street level. They experiment with freight access and engage with stakeholders, business and citizens, and essentially usually establish a flagship street. And once they've completed that, or as a part of that, they're also designing the zero emission area at a district scale. They're usually setting the scale of the zero emission area, and on that scale within the district, significantly improving walking and cycling, increasing public transport priority and connectivity, reducing the overall vehicles in the area, usually with urban landscape interventions, and engaging with stakeholders and businesses and citizens. And then the next tool that cities usually bring to bear is to establish vehicle regulation cordons, or cordon or cordons, depending on where they are, which reduces the vehicles in the area and disincentivizes dirty vehicles, phasing out fossil fuel vehicles while incentivizing the take-up of zero emission vehicles. And there's a sort of a carrot and a stick approach being taken in there. And finally, and actually only one city is at this stage in 2020, they have published a clear timetable by which they intend to achieve a zero emission area. We expect to see quite a few more cities publishing timetables in the next few years, but in 2020, it's only Amsterdam that has published a clear timetable. And I refer to that. You can click straight through to their Clean Air Action Plan. The timetable sets a vision and makes the pathway for stakeholders clear and establishes the deadline for transformation. And that's a very important intervention, and definitely one we expect to see all cities putting out between now and 2024. So just to give you a nice example of what an implementation timeline for a zero emission area looks like, you can see that there's guidance on different modes of transport and some timetables about where we'll start to see transformation. And this is really about making the progressive pathway clear to stakeholders, and in particular, and very important in 2020, sending a signal to the market and establishing a deadline for transformation. And this is so stakeholders know what's coming, they know how much time they have to make adjustments, and there's certainty for them in their decision making. So as a quick highlight for what's in the guide, because I don't have time to go into great detail for the different cities, if you'd like to see some great examples of cities using street-based pilots, there's Oxford's Red Zone and Barcelona's Superblocks, which are worth taking a look at. For cities that are doing some design at a district scale, Auckland's Access for Everyone master plan for the city centre is quite nicely detailed. And Oslo's car-free livability program is also a really nice example. Cities who have established vehicle regulation cordons are London's ultra-low emission zone, which uses a charge, and Milan's Area B and Area G, which uses a ban with a significant fine. So there's a really nice variation in that. And as I said before, the city who has already published a clear timetable is Amsterdam. So there's a reference to Amsterdam's Clean Air Action Plan, and I'd love to introduce you to that. And so finally, before I hand over to our host and we talk to some cities about their particular experiences, where to find this document. The first is that having come to this webinar, you can actually get it immediately. It's in the handouts. So if you look on the control panel, which should be on your left, if you look under the handouts, there's 3. You can download this in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Later on, we'll send you the link, but it's also available on the C40 Knowledge Hub. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. And it can be downloaded there. And if you email me, I will send you a copy with happiness. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to our host, Daniel Moser, who's going to engage in some conversations and questions with 3 city representatives we have on the line. We have a representative from Oslo and 2 from Milan. And I should also encourage you to put questions in the chat. So if you have questions for the panelists, please put them in the chat. Or if you have questions based on my presentation, I'd also love to hear them. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Daniel, and I'm going to mute myself. So Daniel, I can hear you there.
Hi, thanks, Kate, for this very interesting presentation. My name is Daniel. I'm leading the TUMI, the Transformative Mobility Initiative, and we are very happy to have worked together with C40 on this report. C40 took the lead in this, and we were happy to provide our comments and suggestions. And now we do have a couple of city representatives with us here on the call, and we do have Hilde from Oslo, Silvia from Milan, and Valentino from Milan. And maybe you, all 3 of you, would like to switch on your cameras so that we can do a quick Q&A about your learnings and challenges and where you are standing. Hi, everybody. Great to see you. So let me go first by asking you, Hilde, in Oslo, you have made so many gains in shifting citizens towards zero emission pathways. And in particular, I think the environmental toll charges are a very, very interesting instrument you have been using. And on top of that, there is significant support also from your national government towards supporting electric vehicles. And recently, you launched a car-free program also in your cities to reduce the use of vehicles overall. And my first question towards you would be, what have you learned in Oslo about the kind of behavior change that you would like to share with the group, with all the participants on this call? I guess you are muted.
Yes, thank you. Hello, nice to be here. Thank you for having the possibility to be here. I would say that the behavior change in Oslo, it kind of consists of two pillars. It's both a model shift, a shift from driving to mainly more public transport, so that increasing share of public transport at the expense of cars. But it's also a shift from fossil cars to zero emission electric cars. And both of these are important to us to reduce emissions in line with Oslo's goal. We have the goal is to reduce the direct emissions in Oslo by 95% by 2030. So it's quite ambitious. It's necessary both to have zero emission vehicles on the roads, but also to reduce traffic. So we are proud to say that for the private cars in Oslo today, 1 out of 5 is electric actually, and on new sales, 60% of new sales are electric today. So that's not enough, but it's a good start. But also reduction in traffic is necessary. And to start with the model shift, I think there's a combination of the sticks and carrot policies. I think the tolling is a perfect example of that actually, because it makes it more expensive to drive and therefore less attractive. And that is in itself is an incentive to change behavior. On the other side, we spend the money on the solutions that we want because the tolling gives us income. So most of the money is spent on public transport and also on bike lanes. So that makes the climate-friendly solutions more attractive and makes it possible for everyone to live in Oslo without being dependent on a private car. So it's kind of a two-sided coin. Actually, I would say that the same goes from the car-free city life project, because through it's a prioritizing on livable streets. When we take away the cars, we prioritize walking and biking. We have removed a lot of parking spaces and we have made driving restrictions in the inner city. So that makes driving cumbersome, not forbidden, but cumbersome. And it makes walking and biking easier. So combined with the public transport system that we have, it makes the city altogether more livable and more attractive. If I can add a comment on Corona, yes. Because I think that it makes the situation very different, and also kind of both a challenge and a possibility. Because what we see in Oslo today, and I don't know how that's mirrored in other cities, but we see that people travel a lot less than they have used to done, and far more people cycle. So that cycle traffic has been gone up, but far less people are traveling by public transport at the same time, and that's for natural reasons, because we are told not to do so, and we have the same amount of cars. So this is a challenge that we have to work with when we get out of the pandemic situation. We have really to work with not losing what we have achieved on public transport. And yes. For the as last comment on that question is that for the tolling and the parking policies that we have in Oslo, that comes together, as you mentioned, Daniel, with national policies. And specifically is the national car taxes very important, because the car taxes in Norway makes a zero-emission car as expensive or as cheap as a corresponding fossil car, because the fossil cars are heavy taxed. And the zero-emission cars are far cheaper to use, both because of measures as tolling and parking fees, but also because electricity is cheaper than fossil fuels.
One quick follow-up question to you, Hilde, and thanks also for getting into the details here. Very interesting, actually. A question I would like to ask you also is, what are you still struggling, or what are the challenges you are still trying to solve in terms of engaging with your citizens towards behavior change?
That's a good question. Change is hard, and this is all about what people do in their daily life and the choices that they do every day. So while these changes that we do in Oslo, and specifically when they are introduced, they make some people happy and some people want them, but others get upset. And one of the things that there has been a lot of debate about is the tolling. And actually, the tolling is in Oslo as all that goes back to the 1990. And all the time since 1990, there has been a yearly poll that shows us what people think about the tolling. And what is interesting is that over time, people has got far more positive. And there's a question, so what do you think? And then there's a follow-up question. They're told what the money is spent to, and then what do you think then? And when people are told how money is spent, they're far more positive. And I think the same pattern has been seen when it comes to the car-free city life project. And actually in this project, it's specifically interesting to see that the local trade organization, they have shifted from an active negative stand to this project to be positive. So that's very interesting. And I think a very important thing to keep in mind that things changes over time. And also when we are communicating and engaging with people in Oslo, our point of departure is that we should show people solutions, and we should not moralize over what they do or don't. And we really don't care why people do what they do, as long as they do the right things. So, and what's most inspiring to people is to see what their neighbors do, not what we tell them. So it's to show solutions. It's a very important part of engaging with people. But we also know that to reach the goals that we have to do far more than we do today. And we don't really have much time. And then therefore we are dependent on people in Oslo, and we are dependent on the businesses in Oslo, and that they're working together with us. And we are working also to regulate a zero emission area. And then there's a project that has a lot of uncertainties that needs to be worked out. One of them is national legislation. As it is today, we really don't have a legislation that supports us. And another one is enforcement. So both of these are major challenges. So we work with just have a good cooperation at all levels with the national state. Of course, that's not always easy because we don't always agree, but at my office we work a lot with dialogue with officers at the national state levels and also at other stakeholders. So if I can add, we think that to develop solutions requires innovation and also a common momentum. So all these collaborative areas and to build support with the other stakeholders is therefore very, very important. So when we see that there are local businesses that have solutions that really support these projects, it's also important to support that. And we work also with more strategies to reduce the uncertainties, because we don't really know what we can get through if the national legislation is uncertain, and we don't know what will be legal for us. We work with other strategies, as for example, we work a lot with procurement. All procurement that are done by the municipalities that in one way or another applies transport. If you buy goods, it usually applies transport. We work to have that zero emissions. So if there are 3 or more that can deliver on zero emissions, that will be a minimum criteria. And for all procurements, it will be a minimum criteria in 2025. And we also working reserving parking spaces to zero emission cars, specifically to zero emission freight cars, because we see that they have specifically challenges. And we work to develop the tolling. So a lot of strategies that we are working together with businesses.
Thank you.
As well.
Thank you, Hilde.
Thank you.
Very, very comprehensive and very cool and great overview and insight into your work. We do also have 2 guests today from Milan, Silvia and Valentino, on this webinar, and I quickly like to also hand it over towards you. Maybe starting with you, Silvia. The topic of air quality and zero emission areas emphasizes how important the link is between of air quality specialists working together with transport specialists to deliver great results. And we know that Milan it really is a leader in zero emission area design. And you have actually launched just roughly a year ago the largest low emission zone of Europe. So one question I would like to have towards you: we are in the COVID pandemic, and would like to know from your side, can you tell us about the impact on Area B, the large zero emission area or low emission area you launched, and its effect on air quality in Milan in the 12 months before the pandemic hit?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the invitation. I work for the city of Milano in this agency, that is Agency for Mobility, Environment and Territory of the city. That's a technical branch of the administration. And since I was there, I've seen the city that is fighting with traffic pollution. And so several policies look at reduction of emission from traffic. And the largest and most challenging is Area B, that is the largest low emission zone that's covered quite all the territory of the city of Milano. And it works in the working days, and it's looked at reduce access to vehicles, most polluting vehicles. And we have seen some results also in the first year, even if the first year of implementation doesn't see the installation of the implementation of all the video cameras that are forecast to control the implementation of the measure. At the end of the program, more than 187 video cameras will be implemented around the city round cycle. And at present, and the first year, only 15 15th, video cameras was implemented. So the results we have seen in the first year are for sure preliminary results that can be improved in the future, because with a wider implementation of video cameras, the results will be more and more effective. The results for PM10, for example, in terms of traffic emission, is quite around 70% referring to exhaust emission, and 10% referring to PM10 derived from traffic emission in total. And we have also reduction of 11% of nitrogen oxide emissions deriving from traffic. So these are two most pollutants that are the most important problem for air pollution in Milano. So it's a good result, but can be improved in next year with implementation of all these video cameras. For sure, we have most solid results from the implementation of the first limited traffic zone inside the city center, that is called Area C. Area C is for congestion charge. It was the first low emission zone and the limited traffic zone inside the city center that was implemented starting from 2012. And we have organized a special project to monitor the effect on air quality of this measure in the first year of implementation. And we have found that important results can be observed in terms of concentration between the city center and the outside of the congestion charge area. We have observed that the black carbon decrease of 50% in summer, and in roadside sites. When we have monitored black carbon at the roadside site, we have the most important results. But also we have seen results at residential sites, quite a 30% reduction also in winter, when we have not only traffic contribution, but also residential heating contribution to pollution and to black carbon. And so these important results underline the importance to control traffic fluxes to obtain air quality improvement. And the Area C is the city center, is located in the city center, historical city center, and maybe that this perimeter will be the ideal area where we can implement in the future the zero emission area for Milano, because it's the most the best the area best served from traffic public transport. And for sure the project will look at increase electric solution and the recharging points for electric vehicles, and so it will be a process that we have to face in next years. But we are comforted by the results of the previous low emission zone and limited traffic area that we have implemented, and we are sure that we will see improvement in air quality in this area.
One quick follow-up question, Silvia. Thanks. Thanks for these insights, and really looking at the effects of COVID-19 and also the impact we are seeing on more vulnerable people. How do you think, or did you detect a shift in support for actions such as Area B or Area C, as these areas are affecting better air quality? Do you see some shift there?
Yes, for sure. The city administration of Milano was already put already attention on air quality and on climate because started the process of the first air quality and climate plan before the COVID pandemic. But for sure, the happening of the COVID pandemic increased also people's sensitiveness on these themes. On these themes, on these issues, environmental issues and health issues. For sure, this is a floor where the city administration can be easily make understand his effort to reduce traffic, to obtain health benefits in terms of air quality and quality of life.
Thank you. And before moving over to Valentino, just a quick follow-up question from the audience. Silvia, could you please just very briefly repeat the NO2 reduction in area B? This this was a question from the audience.
Yes, is 11th in terms of emissions. In the first year, because we have not implemented at all the control system, but in the future maybe easier. For I can cite an important reduction in NO2 concentration and in NO concentration, nitrogen monoxide, we have obtained during the lockdown period. That is very impressive because we have a reduction of 70% of traffic, and we have obtained quite a 30% of reduction in terms of nitrogen dioxide. So it is a proof. It's proof that controlled traffic can improve air quality.
Thanks, Silvia. And now over to Valentino. We're super happy to have you joining us. Valentino Sevino is Mobility Planning Area Director of AMAT in Milan. And your mayor, Giuseppe Sala, committed to the 15-minute city framework as a recovery response. Now, many of us already know this paradigm is quickly becoming a very, very popular paradigm for city planning, especially as a recovery response measure, as it supports walking, cycling, and also prevents a surge in car travel. And I would really like to know a little bit more from your side about Milan's mobility response to the pandemic. And one specific question to kick it off. I would like to ask you what gains were made that have moved Milan closer towards achieving a zero emission area by 2030 during the last couple of months. Hi, it's muted. Yeah, I think we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Kate, for the invitation. Yes, it's important to recap that the mobility plan is the most important pillar for the new mobility in our city. And the strategy started from very far because our mobility plan was approved in 2018. And all the mobility strategy, the mobility project we are developing now are previewed in our Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. The Area B mentioned by Silvia before was in our Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. In our Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, we study in relation to electric mobility, in relation to the electric mobility infrastructure. We preview the mobility strategy for the public transport in terms of electric mobility to change all the buses for the public transport in electric. The pandemic now is for the mobility aspect and for the new plan, the adaptation plan, is an opportunity. Is an opportunity because we have the possibility to accelerate the project introducing our mobility plan. All the project introduced in our mobility plan was studied in relation to cost-benefit analysis and in terms of modeling results evaluation. And now the situation is totally changed. We are running very fast in order to achieve the goal introduced in our sustainable urban mobility plan, and it is for that is the pandemic is an opportunity for the mobility, only for the mobility. We are working on, and we are working on because we are studying and we are monitoring all the mobility behavior day by day in all the aspects for the mobility. We are monitoring area C, we are monitoring area B, we are monitoring the congestion index, we are monitoring all the cluster in relation to the user of area C in terms of residents, in terms of goods transport, in terms of taxi use, etc., etc. We are monitoring the new mobility systems like sharing mobility. We are monitoring the use of the car sharing, the bike sharing, the scooter sharing, the electric kick scooter as well. And we are monitoring the parking system in our city. And day by day, we send to our deputy mayor and the decision maker in our city all the data in relation to the mobility behavior in order to take specific decision in relation to this aspect.
Thank you, Valentino. So this is a very interesting insight from your side. What would you say if you would have to list the top 3 things that, in terms of affecting change in transport, that have been becoming harder during the pandemic?
Yeah, is important. We are now defining the scenario for the restarts in our city. Tomorrow, for instance, we have a very important meeting with the Prefectura of Milan in order to define a strategy for the restarts in order to our study, because we study different scenarios and we have to decide which of those scenarios we have to apply. And one of the most difficult aspects in our city, but in Italy, is that the public transport is submitted with new rules. Only we have the possibility to use the public transport at a maximum 50% of its capacity. And this aspect is very, very difficult to manage, because the people don't have the possibility to use the public transport like before, and the people probably they are scared to use the public transport in terms of pandemic aspect. So probably the people they shift from public transport to private cars, and we are working to avoid this specific aspect. We preview the adaptation plan with the cycle path, and in order to define the 50 minutes city, in order to shift. Our goal is to shift to the soft mobility all the travel between 0 kilometer and 4 kilometers. And we are working in this specific moment on this aspect. Since this summer, we developed the 35 kilometer of cycle path in our city, and we are monitoring the use of those cycling paths. And in Corso Buenos Aires is the most important commercial street in our city. We have 28% of the use of bikes and electric kick scooter in terms of modal shift in these specific streets. And this is for our city a very, very important result, given the very support in order to go on in this specific policy.
Thank you, Valentino. I think we do actually have a couple of minutes for further questions from the audience. So please go ahead with asking further questions in the question panel on the webinar panel.
And Daniel, sorry to interrupt.
In the chat. Yes, Kate, please go ahead.
I know Lena also wants me to draw everyone's attention to the TUMI quiz, which she's going to post in the chat. Apparently, there is an opportunity to earn TUMI coins, which you'll have to explain to some of the listeners. But while we're doing questions, it would be great to do the quiz as well.
Yes, so just to reiterate what Kate said, there is the opportunity to take a short quiz which goes into and tries to convey the learnings from the cities featured also in the report as well as in this presentation. So thanks. I wanted to give a question also from my side towards you. I think one aspect which we tend to see in cities around the world is the relevance of the mayor also in terms of achieving successes. And I wanted to know maybe from you, Hilde, first, how would you say in bringing this impressive measures to reality, what do you think is the role of political leadership to really take this forward, and how would you see this in Oslo? What are the aspects which you found most important?
Thank you, Daniel. That's a very good question. I think political leadership is extremely important because these are great challenges, and that the mayor and that the political leadership stands behind are leading the way in these shifts is just fundamental. I think that's really what makes things possible, because you can do a lot of administrative level, but if it's not supported and if it's not put forward, it will be no good actually. So it's extremely important, really.
Yes, thank you. Silvia, Valentino, how would you see this, and what would you think are the most important aspects also to brief your political leadership in order to bring forward these solutions? Maybe Silvia, you want to start? I still
yes, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, for sure. I think that the most important aspect in implementing such kind of measure is to involve citizens and to create participation. So it's important that, in fact, in this phase, for example, the city of Milano is facing now the participation phase of the air quality and climate plan. And we have seen that it's important because people can express their opinion give some ideas, and in this way can better achieve also elements to understand the importance of the actions, and for sure make in the future can be actors of the action. So the action we have more important effects in terms of high quality, and because if people change the way to go to school, to go to work, you can obtain results in modal shift, for example, in traffic.
Thank you. This is super important to hear from you, and would like to also to give Valentino a quick opportunity to go into this for a second.
Yeah, the political commitment is very important in our field. All the project, as I told before, all the project was introduced in our Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, but the political commitment in this specific moment was essential in order to go on. For instance, we changed the procedure in order to develop the cycle path in our city, and this changement of the procedure give the possibility to go very fast in order to make this new cycling network. And in order to and the political commitment and the government commitment for the scenario of the city restarts is another important aspect, because in our city restart we push a lot on soft mobility and the clean mobility, and have the support from the Prefecture of Milan and from our deputy mayor in order to apply those scenarios is the way to give the possibility to have a different city response to the air climate plan as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Valentino. And we do have time for one last question. We are actually at the limit, but this is a very interesting one. So this is a question from Jakarta, and Jakarta is currently in the process of setting up their own low emission area in the old town of Jakarta, actually. And the question would be also towards you, Valentino, and you, Hilde. Would you consider the areas these as zero emission areas or transit malls, and where would you see the difference between the zero emission area concept or a transit mall concept, which is in some ways a more traditional way of pedestrianizing or creating a low car traffic urban center? Maybe starting with you, Hilde, first, and then moving on to Valentino again.
Yes, I think that if you're going to take it literally, a zero emission area is a zero emission area, which means that there will be no fossil cars whatsoever in that area. And then I think and that will tap into what Kate was introducing when she introduced the report. There will always be a question about what's possible and also what's both legislative, but also for what possibilities will people living in the city have in what you are doing. Therefore, and I think that the concept Kate presented kind of show that you can go into this with different angles. So if it takes it literally, it's only zero emission, but you are not always able to do that. So you have to work on other strategies, and you have to work on pedestrianizing and make other possibilities good. I think for when you think of people living in the city, zero emission traffic might also be a problem for people. It might make it harder to walk, harder to bike. It's important for security around schools. That is, there are not too many cars, no matter what cars that they have. So we have to work on both strategies. And I think the goal for both of this is that we want healthy, livable cities where people can have a good life, and where we don't have climate gas emissions, and so we can combat climate change and be a part of the solutions in the city.
Thank you, Hilde. And over to Valentino, very quick. Thank you.
Yeah,
Valentino.
From my side, Area C was a stage to join to achieve the goal of the zero emission area. We probably, if we make directly the zero emission area without different stage, we didn't achieve this goal. But in our strategy, in our sustainable urban mobility plan, Area C was a stage, Area B was another stage, and giving the possibility to the citizens, to the city users, to understand that they have to change their behavior in terms of mobility systems, in terms of time slot, and in terms of vehicles that they can use in order to enter in our city. And now, year by year, it is possible to speak about zero emission area. Our mayor launched this strategy, and only because now we have a way drawing.
Thank you, Valentino. And I believe we are just 5 minutes over time. But we really think that was super interesting to hear from all of you these kinds of experiences and insights into where you are currently at and what are the greatest challenges, but also opportunities from your side. I would like to thank you from my side. Thank you so much for joining us as guests, but also also would like to thank the audience for taking the time to listen. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with TUMI, the Transformative Mobility Initiative, if you do have any questions about our work. And I would like to hand it over to Kate from C40 to close this for all of us.
Thanks, Daniel, and thank you very much to the panelists. This guide could not have been produced without your detailed and expert review, and thank you for being patient while I followed up with you over this year. So thank you very much to TUMI as well for your support, and I look forward to comments on the guide, and I look forward to creating a new one in a couple of years when we have more cities who are being very public about their zero emission area plans. So to success in the future and to continued acceleration. And I think I will close this here. I think Lena will close the webinar, but thank you everyone and have a very good day. We will be posting it on the C40 Knowledge Hub and it'll be shared on the TUMI YouTube site as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.